The next instalment after one of the biggest releases of all time is a tricky one. Expectations would be high, and at the same time a formula of familiarity has to be met, so either way the response will be unpredictable, which leads me nicely onto Halo 3 ODST, the step-sibling of Halo 3. So that's find our chairs, check our mouths and get set for a combat drop. It's told through a series of flashbacks with the final act following after the timelines meet, but before we are shown a briefing scene introducing all the members of the squad: Buck, Romeo, Mickey, Dutch and their newly appointed commander Dare. You are the aptly titled Rookie, and they are tasked with following Dare's orders, which are deliberately kept vague. After waking up after his pod crash, leaving him unconscious for hours, the Rookie awakens. He tropes around the dark streets of New Mombasa to find clues of the whereabouts of his teammates. Each piece of evidence begins a new flashback, and you see the perspective of each member of the team and what happened after they dropped to the ground, and end up getting involved in various other operations. Discovering they initially decided to abandon the mission and get out of the city, they later realise that Dare had other intentions and they must go back. When the timelines meet, the Rookie finds his way down an elevator shaft and into a place called the Data Hive. Fighting his way through, he establishes contact with Dare, and the duo make their way into the Superintendent, which turns out to be
a fucking alien
named Virgil, which possesses advanced knowledge about the Covenant and can turn the tide of the war. Buck also shows up as he figured out where they are, and they must escort Virgil out, as he is a high valued asset. They make their way towards the coastal highway and back to where Buck left his Phantom. After a vicious amount of Covenant show up, they have to wait for evac to arrive, barely making out before they get glassed. The final scene shows Virgil getting interrogated by Sergeant Johnson, and this explains how within Halo 3 the UNSC knew all this information about the dig site and the portal to the Ark. There is good to be found within this game, much like all the others. May as well start at the beginning. It's nice that you actually have the option to skip the tutorial right off the bat, because it was kind of annoying having to sit through it every time in the previous entries, so being given the option to bypass it didn't go amiss. Also, the idea of it being about an entire team as an ensemble cast instead of one main protagonist was a unique idea, and the only one in the series to really do so, as usually it'd be about one or two main characters, and the cast themselves really enhance this idea. All of them are likeable and have personality. The chain of command is quickly established and each member has their role, but they share one common trait, and that's the desire to get out alive. The new health system introduced really changes the gameplay. Instead of getting full armour by getting in cover for a few seconds, once your stamina is depleted you begin to lose health, much like in Combat Evolved, and it implements new strategies as a result. You have to decide where to go guns a-blazing because that you know there's plenty of health packs, or to be more conservative because there are a few. Obviously, this was the first entry to introduce Firefight, a wave survival mode that goes on indefinitely, and it was easily the best incarnation of the mode. It was the real deal as far as a challenge went. In the original version, you were unable to change any of the settings aside from the difficulty, and you really had to rely on your skills and teammates to survive. It was authentic and a great way to spend an hour or two. Obviously the MCC version allows you to tweak all the settings, but it's just not the same, but you can play it in the classic way using a preset. One thing everyone seems to like about the game is its visuals, and I'd agree for the most part. The city at night is atmospheric and moody. You wander around and see various debris from previous battles. It really feels like a breathing world. One thing that stands out is Virgil's directions. This is so subtle you probably wouldn't even notice it unless it's pointed out. He'll use street signs giving you directions saying this way or don't pass. It's a really neat little detail, and I must admit the level Data Hive is definitely my personal favourite. It's really gloomy and dark, as if no one was ever meant to find it, and I seriously thought the Flood were going to show up at some point during the level, but obviously not, as that would destroy the canon and lore. But in honesty, its biggest strength is also its biggest flaw. The city only really shines through during the nighttime missions, as during the day it just looks kind of monotonous. What we saw of the city in Halo 2 and 3 depicted it as fairly colourful, but the limited colour palette in ODST just makes it look bland and dull, like it's just a generic place and not a unique settlement. Aside from visuals, a few gameplay mechanics leave a bit to be desired. The introduction of 2 suppressed weapons was nice, but it would have been nice if you could actually use them as stealth weapons. Like when you fire it alerts every enemy within the area, which it really shouldn't do that. That's kind of the point of a suppressor, isn't it? They also removed one-use equipment, replacing it with night vision instead, which was a nice addition, but why not just let you have both? Obviously dual wielding was also removed, which I guess makes sense as you're not a Spartan, but dual wielding silenced SMGs would have been fun. And above all, it's just not that long. You can complete it in one sitting. It is replayable just like the others, but the lack of any real multiplayer does leave a bit of an unfilled void within the game. So how do I summarise it? Well, honestly, if I had to describe it simply, it'd be different. It doesn't really have the grand set pieces or sci-fi scenarios the other games feature, and to be honest, I'm perfectly okay with that. It proves you don't have to be a genetically enhanced super soldier to take on a deadly alien race and still succeed. It's unique in the sense it's the only one to not feature the Master Chief or any Spartans whatsoever, and was deliberately a smaller scale, and it really delivered for the most part, but it feels like it could have been much more, but at the same time I ask myself, would I really have wanted it to be? Well, I think that about covers it. Signing off.